Hello, I haven't made a video for a while, so my English is very bad. But I wanted to tell an idea I had for my interpreted language valid, for my own programming language valid, which is interpreted, to eliminate the null, and use instead undefined, only undefined. I mean, the null object we all know it's called like the $1 million bug, like, so it's not a new idea to eliminate delete the null object in the structure, in the principle of the programming language. But actually I don't know, but I think it's pretty unique to use only the undefined as a nullish value, just undefined, not null. So replacing the null concept with the undefined. Undefined is the new null, but I think for today's technology about web servers and softwares, it's more appropriate to use undefined, because null, it's you haven't initialized an object, it's more a old style, more connected to the OOP, object-oriented programming, which I don't like. I think it's true, the famous quote, object-oriented programming, it's the alternative way to solve a problem in the right way, of Edgar. I don't like object-oriented programming. Yes, it is useful sometimes, but everything can be done with simple functions and checking system if else and so on. But in today's programming, where one want to create objects in runtime, complex objects in runtime, and where the programming languages are often reflective, the undefined must be a solution, because you have to have a case where if you don't find something, the software does not crash, does not go in error. And one can say that one should use the try-catch, but I think also the try-catch is obsolete, like the null, because one thing, if this is like one of my principles while programming, I always followed this way of thinking, making my softwares, and I think I had success following this principle. The principle is, I will explain now in simple words. One should not use try-catch often, because if you use try-catch, that means you know your software can fail, and you use a safety system to catch this mistake, this error. But the more correct thing is to prevent the error from happening. I know that not everything can be you cannot I don't know how to say in English, get all the things that can possible happen. So the try-catch is actually useful, but I made softwares which did not use try-catch, and they still run with no problems. So it's not a compulsory, a necessary way of thinking. So the try catch is more like if I fail, I don't like it. It's better to prevent. So the compiler must catch all the possible errors at the best, but the runtime errors cannot be all. And again, I don't know the word. So you must have a value which is returned to highlight that an object is not there, or something is not correct in the, for example, in a conversion. But if you return null, it can be you can think, oh, okay, the object is actually null, but it's not a correct way, because if it fails and it returns null, because one can say you just use null. No, because if it's null, you can think it's null, because null is actually a value, a non-value which is actually a value. In the sense, in the concept sense, null means something. Undefined is more a weak concept, which means it's not defined. Null is actually definition of null. So undefined is better for handling mistakes and runtime not finding something. So valid, it's maybe the only, I don't know, it's a language where null does not exist. An empty string, for example, is used when you declare a string. When you declare an object, it's actually an empty string. Everything is string, more or less. And in the future releases version of valid, I will implement some native things to better this thing and don't use always string. But this is the concept. Everything is empty, not null, like in Java. In the object, it's null. Is empty, an empty, which is actually a famous thing. Maybe it's done in Kotlin. I don't know what. But if you don't find something, you get undefined. Like if you have an object which has inside a property called another object called a key called a, and you do x dot a to get the a inside x, you get something. But if you use b and b does not exist, you get undefined, like in JavaScript. But the null is not there. But there are some cases I'm actually having fun finding all these cases, because I like it. Indeed, as a matter of fact, I invented my own language, that sometimes when I call it scouting, I don't know if it is there is already another word, to get a property inside an object like x.a. Sometimes there are some cases from a language, a lexical perspective, that you don't know if the interpreter or the programming language, valid in my case, should check the runtime object, or if the compiler should check. There is some rare, it's rare, but there is a case. So I put in my language the exclamation mark, which was called the trust operator in the first version of valid, which means that if you write x.h exclamation mark, the compiler, which is in my case is not a compiler, but I call it just to show some important thing. It's actually a rearrangement of the code. With the exclamation mark, the compiler checks and ensure that the object is declared from the code, from hard code, and not in runtime. If you do not put the exclamation mark after the x.h, the A element is searched in runtime. It's actually a delicate thing, and I mean, I'm not super expert in programming languages creation, so maybe I'm doing something wrong, and this is not necessary. But I noticed that it was a nice thing to use in the programming language. So at the end, if a programming language is very comfortable to use and very good from the programmer point of view, it is good to use it, including all the performance and speed and memory things. I mean, from a language perspective, which is not the only thing, obviously. But I mean, from the language perspective, if something is weird, is strange, is new, not weird, is strange or new, but it is very comfortable to use from the programmer to program, to write some concept, some ideas, some controls. It should be done. So I noticed that this exclamation mark was okay, so I put it. However, it's a rare thing to use because it happens rarely to have this ambiguity. But the video was more about the undefined. Null is obsolete. Undefined is the new null. Actually, it's not the new null, because this way undefined will be obsolete in some, and will be the new billion, trillion, zillion bug. But undefined is better. So null is obsolete, undefined is way better.